Hi everybody, welcome to the second week of May's card class, weekly card class featuring the terrific Toadstools stamp set. My name is Stacey Marsh, I'm a demonstrator from the United Kingdom. I'm also a member of the 2025 Artisan Design team. So a very happy hello to you wherever you are joining from around the world. This week I'm going to be sharing another card using the terrific Toadstools stamp set, and this is week 2 in the card class. If you're following along at home, you will need the kit with week number 2 on it and some scrap white card, and I'll talk you through the other bits and pieces that we're going to be using. First of all, let's do a little recap. In week 1 I showed how to make this card design. It was a design just to get us started with the stamp set. The stamp set is a 2-step stamp set, and the design of this is very simple. I've kept my colours very, very simple as well, and I just wanted us to get used to using those images and to getting used to using the punch and a couple of little techniques to bring those toadstools to life. Week number 2 is a little more complex. It looks like this, and as well as showing you how to use the toadstool punch still and the stamp set and some of the other images that we've used in the background, I'm also going to share with you a fun technique for the background of your cards. So to get us started, you will need all the pieces in kit number 2. And I'm just going to get my pieces now. So in kit number 2, you should have a card base cut from crumb cake card. You should have a piece of basic beige card that has been embossed with one of the distressed looking embossing folders. You will also have another layer of basic beige card, and that is a plain piece. Then you have a piece of basic white, that's for the inside of your card, like so. And you will have one more piece of basic white, just one more? Yes, just one more piece of basic white. And then you'll need some extra for your stamping. And you've got some scrap in your kit. Colour-wise, I'm going to be keeping it quite simple. I've got Mossy Meadow, Crumb Cake and Pecan Pie. And you will also need some scrap of early espresso cardstock, or if you don't have early espresso cardstock, I will show you a bit of a hack with that as well. So to make a little start, I'm going to start building our card base and give your card base a nice crease. The layer of basic beige card that's been embossed, you want to attach that. I'm attaching mine at a slight angle, starting to not be so rigid with my straight lines. And let's pop that on there. So see, I went to put it on straight. Did you see that? Okay. So I'm putting that on at a nice angle, like so. Now you'll notice on this card, the layer behind is quite dark. It's definitely darker than basic beige, and I'm going to show you a fun technique to use with your ink pad. So I'm going to grab my scratch paper from the video I filmed the other day, and it is the video that I filmed for this class, so week 1. And you're going to take your Pecan Pie ink pad and you are going to distress this piece of card. And what you're going to do is you're going to run your ink pad down your card from the top to the bottom. And this just picks up some of that lovely texture in the card, and it gives you almost a wood grain effect. Love this technique. And it doesn't matter if you get something that looks like that, because actually wood is not the same colour all the way through, is it? The colour of wood is very varied. So you have something that looks like that. So it looks a bit grubby at the moment. Grubby is a good word for that. And you're going to stick that down onto the card front at the opposite angle, because you want some of that emboss layer to show. Now, when you're attaching pieces to emboss layers, it can be quite tricky. So just hold that in place, like so. There you are. Okay. And then you've got your larger piece of basic white that you can stick inside your card. There you are. So that is your piece there. Now, just to an idea to show you what this looks like, when you put this on, look at that. The grubbiness disappears and you're left with a really natural wood looking background. Such a fun technique and a cool technique as well. I love to do things like that. So we're going to work on this piece of white card. I'm just going to bring in our sample so that you can see this. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a blending brush. You know me, I love a blending brush. And using some crumb cake ink, I'm just going to be really delicate. Okay, I'm just going to add a little shadow of crumb cake ink in the background, like so. I just want to add a bit of texture in that background. Now, what you're going to do, the next step is your mound. Okay. So the mound you're going to stamp in pecan pie ink, and you want to stamp this so it's sort of 2/3 towards the bottom. I'm just going to see what this looks like. There we go. And then onto a scrap piece of white card, you're going to stamp it again. This piece we're going to cut out shortly, like so. And then onto this piece, we're going to stamp our toadstools. Actually, we'll do that bit next. We'll do that bit in a while. We're going to carry on working on this. So you'll notice on here, you've got some stamping in the background, and we're going to use some of those other stamps from the set. So you have this little triple stem, and this little triple stem is for the mini toadstools to go on. So taking our crumb cake ink pad, all the stems on this card that are stamped in crumb cake ink. Okay, and you're going to stamp it so that it's ever so slightly at an angle. And just be mindful, you need to have room to stamp your toadstool heads over the top. The toadstool heads are stamped in pecan pie. And then we've got this lovely leaf pattern, this lovely leaf here. And that we're going to stamp that over on the left-hand side. And don't worry too much about stamping over your mound, because we're going to cover a bit of that up shortly. Like so. And then whilst we're there, we're also going to stamp a leaf onto our scratch paper, onto our card. So then, just being mindful of these toadstools, we want to stamp them along the top. So I'm stamping my toadstool heads. I'm going to stamp 2 of these large oval looking ones. And there. And one there. And this is in crumb cake ink. That one looks a bit muddy. Do that again, that's better. And then use your punch to punch that, remembering that it's going to punch out inside the outline. 2. Okay. And then we've got our medium-sized toadstool. And let's just think about where this is going to go. Let's just trim this off. So then now I can get that in there. Lovely. So bring in here. And I really like it when you get a bit of texture in these images. And then the last thing I've got to do is to stamp this little toadstool head. So let's stamp that on there. Okay, So that's my stamping done at the moment. Let's snip these pieces out. So again, I'm going to go against what my brain is telling me to do. I'm going to cut out inside that edge. So that one. There you go, that one and that one. And then the leaf is the only thing that I'm going to cut out by leaving a little white border. There we go. And that's my leaf cut out. And then what we can do is we're going to do what we did before with these toadstools. We're going to go around the edge just carefully with that sponge dauber that's got early espresso ink on it. And at the moment I'm just using the residue ink. Let's grab a pink, shall we? Actually, I think I've used the pecan pie ink. Feels a little bit browner. I'm going to use the same dauber or dauber, whichever you prefer to say. Okay. And then the last bit I've got is my mound, which I know I've cut out, and now I can't see it. I'm not being silly, am I? Here it is. It's underneath my ink pad. Don't forget the mound as well. Lovely. So there are my toadstool components. And now I'm going to grab some early espresso card. And what I want to do with the early espresso card is I want to stamp out some of these toadstool stems. So like we did in the first video, take yourself a thin strip of card, about either 1/2 inch or about 1.5 centimeters, and cut out a few toadstool stems. Now, if you don't have any early espresso card, and what you can do, I want 4 of those. If you don't have any early espresso card, what you can do is you can take some white card and an early espresso ink pad and just rub your ink pad on your white card, and that will give you some early espresso card. But what I love about this is that when you stamp it, like so, you actually get some really nice texture. So as a comparison, that's your cardstock and that is your texture. So just a nice little technique there for you. So here we are now, we're going to build our toadstools. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do what we did last week. I'm going to add my stems to my toadstools, and they're going on the front of my toadstools. I'm going to use my tweezers, it's just a little bit easier. And then the only one I'm going to stick behind is this little guy. Okay. But what I'm going to do is I want to stick the toadstool. I want to make the toadstool shorter. I'm going to stick that about there. And then when it's dry, I'm going to cut off this excess piece. And then turn all of your toadstools over. And I'm going to add some foam pads behind there. I'm just going to add them to those two. And turn this one over. And just cut that off. There we go. So now we have a little toadstool, or a short toadstool, shall I say. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to stick this toadstool down. So let's put that over there. Bring back in my sheet. And then now I'm going to put my toadstool on about there. Okay. And then here we go, we're going to layer them. So this one is going to be next. And that's going to go out there. The little guy I'm going to put on last, and that one I'm going to put on last. Now what you're going to do is you're going to cover your workings out like this, your fixings, and just take yourself some pads. That's right. And then take your mound that you've cut out and line it up. Like so. Cute. And then the next thing we can do is we can add our toadstools to finish. Now remember, this can go slightly off the edge as well. I haven't taken the backing off. What a silly girl. And then our little guy. So we've got a nice background there of toadstools. I've got my leaf that I've cut out. That can be stuck in there like so. And then what I need to do is I want to stamp my sentiment, and it's popping up to say hi. I'm stamping this with early espresso ink. And I'm stamping this just below my mound. There we go. Early espresso ink is probably one of my most underrated ink pads. Let's bring the card back in. Get rid of some of my equipment. And then turn this over, and you want to line it up so that it sits in the middle of that sort of wood grain area. There we go. And then all I've got left to do is finish with a couple of gems. So let's grab a couple of these. And I'm just going to stick these on at random. You have 3 sizes in your kit. And these are the new holographic gems. Where'd he go? There he is. And then let's have a couple. I'm going to use my scissors actually rather than tweezers. That's it. And one there. So that's it. That is card number 3 complete. Do let me know what you think in the comments. It's always nice to get some feedback. If you are following along at home, please add your finished projects to my community Facebook group so you can share with everybody. And if you have any comments or questions about any of the products I've used, please feel free to get in touch. All of the products I've used can be purchased online at staceymarshall.co.uk. And that's it until next week. Next week we will be live at the same time, or not live at the same time. The video will premiere at the same time. And this is design number 3. And I'm looking forward to sharing that with you all. Bye for now, everyone.